Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espey.
Well, first, my good evening. How are you? This is Update, where we take a little bit more of an in-depth look at some of the news stories that have been making the headlines today. Coming up before 5:30, government is accused of prioritising new people over existing residents, but the Chief Minister says this administration can be proud of its achievements. Meanwhile, two other politicians say common sense has prevailed over some new broadband polls. We'll hear from a young Manx football talent who's now playing with Carlisle United. And just ahead of this year's Island Games, we'll catch up with the Manx gymnastics team manager. Oh, and there's a small matter of one Billy Harris, who's currently playing at Wimbledon. We'll bring you the very latest on how he's doing. We'll have the weather, the traffic and the travel as well. And as ever, if you'd like to get in touch, you can text the studio. It's 166 177. We'll start with a roundup of the news headlines with Siobhan Fletcher. Faster my.
The Chief Minister says government's aim to generate 30 megawatts of renewable energy on island by the next general election is absolutely not going to happen. It had been hoped a 20 megawatt onshore wind farm and 10 megawatt of solar power would be up and running by 2026. But Alfred Cannon told Manx Radio that even if projects are given the go-ahead, the logistics are still a challenge.
The brutal truth is, there are much other greater technicalities also behind the scenes. Even if this does get approved, transporting infrastructure across to the Isle of Man is an issue.
The Infrastructure Minister says she's willing to see if she can extend the horse trams to the sea terminal. Michelle Haywood says she's asked for the plans to be pulled out and her department is checking if it's fit for purpose, with a business case in progress. 2MHK say they're delighted that common sense has prevailed with regards to 8 fibre broadband poles being installed in Tramode. The planning committee has rejected both applications unanimously. And the first of government's Listening to You roadshows will be getting underway this evening at Ramsey Grammar School in about half an hour's time. 4 events are to take place this week. Further afield, a 92-year-old man's been convicted of raping and murdering a pensioner almost 60 years ago in what's thought to be the UK's longest cold case to reach trial. DNA from the investigation into the death of Louisa Dunn in her Bristol home in 1967 was examined, leading officers to Ryland Headley, who was then 34. Detective Inspector Dave Merchants from Avon and Somerset Police.
I had to read that email a number of times to actually fully digest the content of it and believe what I was reading. And then it was okay, game on, let's get this investigation going.
The BBC has said it regrets broadcasting punk duo Bob Vylan's live performance at Glastonbury, where the band led the crowd in chants of death to the IDF. And amber heat health alerts have been extended to cover most of England. Forecasters predict temperatures could peak at 34 degrees in London and the southeast today. They're your headlines, news at 6.
Thank you very much indeed, Siobhan. Well, the weather here, brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing, tells us it's going to be dry with bright or sunny intervals, a little bit cloudy in central and southern areas this afternoon, moderate locally fresh south or southwest winds. They'll veer northwest later. Maximum temperatures today have been around 21 in the north. Tonight we'll see some rain for a time, but that will clear away by dawn tomorrow. And then tomorrow will be dry with sunny intervals, moderate winds and a top temperature of around 18. Staying dry with sunny spells on Wednesday, and again moderate winds. They will soon ease during the day, and again temperatures around 18 on Wednesday. Sunset this evening will be at 9:55. Sunrise tomorrow morning 4:49.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tramode Estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Beldorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
At Begode Cattery, we have been caring for animals for over 50 years. As a cattery, we care for customers' cats and treat them as our own. Contact Begode Cattery on 676 947 or find Begode Cattery on Facebook.
You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio. It's just coming up to 5:05. If you're hoping to catch up with Wimbledon a little bit later and find out how Billy Harris is doing, just close your ears for a moment. OK, he's won the second set and he's currently leading 2-0, so fingers crossed that will continue. We'll bring you the very latest on that in the sports news towards the end of the programme. But first tonight, government has been accused of failing to look after island residents, preferring to focus on attracting new people to the island and the pursuit of vanity projects. Arbury, Castletown and Maloo MHK Tim Glover launched the attack on what he's described as this current lame administration. He made the comments on Facebook after posting images of roadworks carried out in Balacry Park in Colby, which he described as a half-baked effort. He told Simon Richardson the problems highlighted were part of what he believed to be a wider malaise.
I do. We had many problems identified 4 years ago at the last election, and I think many of those problems are still there. There's been a big emphasis on trying to attract new wage earners to the island. My view has been throughout the 4 years that let's get what we've got here right first, and people will come organically anyway to the island. They'll want to come. People see this. Well, what are they going to think about the place? Is that going to make you want to come to an island? Does a half-baked effort like that following installation of infrastructure? And it's also symptomatic as well of just building in more costs at a later date. And again, do the job properly the first time. It just needed to be planed out, tarmacked over, job done.
Is this a general feeling that government aren't concentrating on the basics and focusing on what I think you referred to as vanity projects?
Yeah, I think we've got to, look after the people that are already here and make sure their quality of life is maintained. And that's just not happening in Balacry, in Colby. And I think that's symptomatic.
I think it's not the first time that people have questioned the quality of roadworks recently. I remember people were very upset over work to repair potholes on Laxey Promenade. Is this because the workforce within DOI has been decimated in recent years and maybe the work's hived off to private contractors?
I think there is a case of that, and I think also that infrastructure, full stop, don't have enough money to do all the jobs they want to do. There is good work taking place. Let's emphasise that as well. But then it comes to something like this, and it's all undone.
That is Tim Glover, MHK, talking to Simon there. But on the other side, the island can be proud of its success over the past 4 years and retains a strong position. It's a view of the Chief Minister as he comes to the end of the penultimate year of this administration. But with just 5 new pieces of legislation due to be promulgated at this year's Tynwald Day, what really has this government achieved? Well, Alfred Cannon has been talking to our political correspondent, Phil Gaughan.
I don't think you should necessarily judge the success of the government by numbers of pieces of paper that have been delivered, because we have had significant areas to tackle. Let's say getting on top of healthcare expenditure, healthcare governance, healthcare delivery does not predicate it itself necessarily just on pieces of legislation. Bringing forward the reform in terms of education, in terms of school inspections and how that was to be undertaken, doesn't necessarily need a piece of legislation to do that. It actually, the government can clearly demonstrate how it has made improvements, how we have improved the economy, how we have improved lives, how we have built more houses, how we have sought to get healthcare under control and move it forward without necessarily bringing forward legislation. There is legislation, of course, coming through in quite big streams. So actually there has been a lot of transitional work that we have undertaken. I think the island can be proud of the progress that it's made. We're certainly not in that 2016 position where we were net negative migration and people were leaving the island. The island retains a strong position to continue to take us forward positively. And of course, we've got to build on some of those issues, for example, that were raised very much at our last public roadshows. That's why this year we have focused on the economy. We have focused on immigration. We're raising up the minimum levels of wages to prevent low-paid immigrants coming across into society. We're talking very much about security on our island. We've invested in our police force. We've strengthened their capabilities. The island's going to be a very safe place to live in a very uncertain world at the moment.
That is the Chief Minister, Alfred Cannon there. Well, he did mention the road shows. The Listening to You event is heading to Ramsey this evening. It's going to be held at Ramsey Grammar School from 5:30. It's the first of the road shows and it's starting up in the north. 4 events taking place this week. And the aim is really to provide residents the opportunity to talk about any key issues that are here on the Isle of Man. So that happening tonight and throughout the week. We'll have a full report on what happened this evening on breakfast tomorrow morning. It's 5:10 and 2 MHKs say they are delighted that common sense has prevailed with regards to 8 fibre broadband poles being installed in Tramode. The Planning Committee has rejected both applications unanimously, as Siobhan reports.
MHKs for Douglas North, David Ashford and John Wannenberg had previously written to the Enterprise Minister describing the proposed use of poles as a backward step and short-sighted. Reacting to the news today that the plans have been quashed, the pair released a joint statement. They say they are delighted that common sense has prevailed. They went on to say the Planning Committee has recognised both the visual impact and streetscape impact of the proposed installation of fibre broadband poles in Tramode and rejected both applications unanimously. It was great to see so many residents present at the meeting to make their feelings known. Relevant government agencies now need to engage and work with Manx Telecom to find a solution that fits with the 21st century, not the 1970s.
Siobhan Fletcher reporting there. Well, in the past few minutes, we have had a statement from Manx Telecom. They say they remain committed to delivering full fibre broadband to all Isle of Man residents by 2029, when our legacy copper network will be decommissioned. Our infrastructure, they say, approach prioritises existing underground ducting and third-party infrastructure wherever possible. Detailed site surveys explore all underground options first. Only when these methods are unsuitable do we proceed with overhead deployment using poles. Manx Telecom says they acknowledge the Planning Committee's decision regarding Tramode and will work constructively with all stakeholders to find a viable solution for this area. With the 2029 copper switch-off approaching, collaborative problem-solving will ensure all communities are included in the island's digital transformation. We remain committed, they say, to finding solutions that balance infrastructure needs with community concerns while delivering reliable, high-speed internet access to every household. And that full statement can be found on the story at manxradio.com. 12 minutes past 5 and the Department of Education, Sport and Culture has announced plans to pilot a new literacy profiling programme. Now, at the moment, there's no formal screening for dyslexia on the island, and the government says this is because of the absence of a single reliable test that can definitively identify specific learning difficulties. Literacy profiling is an assessment approach that builds a more detailed picture of a learner's reading and writing abilities to help identify potential difficulties and inform tailored support. Well, Dr. Johnny Fee is an educational psychologist at the department, and he outlined what the proposed profiling will involve.
In order to make it successful, you need to be regularly assessing and monitoring progress over time. So the risk of screening is their snapshots in time, and they're not necessarily linked to the curriculum. So as the curriculum increases, the assessment might still just look at the same one area, and actually you might therefore miss other areas of need. So potentially, as you screen for need, you need different tools at different ages that identify different areas of need. We'll be looking to regularly assess literacy need from reception, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6 and year 7, with some targeted interventions potentially, if they are in receipt of, having some built-in assessments for those targeted groups within Key Stage 3 at secondary.
So this pilot scheme will be rolled out across all schools?
As a pilot, no. So we're just trying to see whether or not schools find it helpful or useful.
How many schools will be in the pilot?
So we are in the process of negotiating that. There's about 8 that are currently expressed an interest to pilot it. Within that, there's a couple of different components. There's the assessment component, which I think is really important. And the reason that's important is it's linked to the curriculum more so. You will be looking at phonics kind of earlier on, where actually you might be looking a little bit more at some kind of reading skills as you progress through. So the assessment changes as the curriculum changes, so you should be more likely to catch the different profiles of need.
I'm just concerned that there's a real focus on that literacy aspect, not those other issues that can impact on that child's learning. We're talking about it, profiling a literacy tool here. How will that capture things like memory and organisation?
we need to be clear here around definition. So if we know that the research is saying for literacy needs or dyslexia that the areas that you listed are the key areas that we need to be focusing in on, there are clearly other areas that support the acquisition of learning and skills. If you're needing to support literacy. If you're needing to support working memory or long-term memory or processing speed, look at supporting that separately. Don't conflate the two areas.
That is Dr. Johnny Fee, an educational psychologist at the Department for Education. He was talking to a select committee that came about as a result of a Tynwald Day petition around this time last year. And if you'd like to listen back to it in full, you can find the story on our website. There's a video there where you can watch the committee in action as well.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, nothing to report on the police pages, which is always good news. There are some little things to be aware of, though. Temporary lights on Broadway near the Victoria Road turn, that's for resurfacing. In Santon, temporary lights on the New Castletown Road near Mount Murray still, that's for resurfacing. In Castletown, temporary lights on Victoria Road, that's near the petrol station for bus stop improvement work. Colby, temporary lights on Colby Level, that's for bus stop improvement work as well. And also in Sulby at Sulby Bridge, 24 hours a day, there are temporary lights there for work on the manhole covers. Looking down at the airport, I know there have been some issues earlier because of the weather, but all looking pretty good down there at the moment. And the latest from the steam packet as well. The Ben McCree is due back into Douglas at around about 6:30, heading out again to, it'll be the Manxman heading out again to Heysham at 7:45, and the Manannan will be leaving Liverpool at 7:15. You can find the full list of everything that's happening on our website as ever.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with Quayside.
It's just gone 16 minutes past 5, and Andy's been in touch about these road shows that are happening this week. The first one in Ramsey is asking, do you have to register online before you go? There is a link to register, Andy. You can find that on the story that's on the Manx Radio website. I think they do prefer you to register that you're going first of all. Now, delegates from 19 small countries have been arriving on the island last week for the 2025 Small Countries Financial Management Programme. It's held over 7 days at the Nunnery and brings together senior government financial leaders from some of the world's poorest and most remote nations. Countries from as far afield as the Caribbean, Pacific region, Indian Ocean and Africa are going to be represented. And the executive director of the programme, former Chief Constable Gary Roberts, told Simon that the importance of an event like this to the countries involved can't be overstated.
We're talking about countries that are really economically challenged, that are contending with all sorts of structural problems, climate change, for example. There's some of them facing existential threat of climate change, and they can't necessarily afford to have their senior officials exposed to top quality training and development, and that's what we do for them.
Now, obviously, they're going to learn a lot on the programme, but it's also a great chance for them, I suppose, to get together with people who live in similar communities with similar problems and talk through the issues.
That's a critical part of the programme, and just last week, we were talking to some of the people who participated in the programme last year. Some of them from different parts of the world are cooperating on problems. They didn't know that they had shared problems, and now that they can work with people they form friendships with from other parts of the world to try to tackle common problems, and that's a very powerful thing indeed.
Now, the programme's, as you say, been running since 2009, and it's thanks, of course, to the charity. It's also the first of a two-part programme, the second part of which is, I understand, at Oxford University.
There are three key elements to what we do. One is the Isle of Man government sees this as a very positive way of showing that the island is part of the solution to international problems, not a troublemaker, if you like, not a place that has a bad reputation. So the support of the Isle of Man government is key. We bring participants to the island where they are given some really high-level input, some of which is coming from academics from Oxford. And then the second part of the programme is at the University of Oxford, where some world-leading academics will provide them with up-to-date, fantastic input on all manner of topics.
That is the Executive Director of the Small Countries Financial Management Programme. It's the former Chief Constable Gary Roberts talking to Simon Richardson there. Thank you to the texter who says the traffic lights in Colby aren't at Colby level. They're outside the Methodist Church Hall. The sign and traffic lights were delivered on Friday, collected this morning and moved from the levels. So thank you very much indeed for that. So that's what you need to be just aware of if you are travelling down that area on your way home. It is coming up to 5:20, and a young Manx football talent is praising the mentoring he received on Ireland on his way to making his big break in the English Football League during last season. 18-year-old Freddie O'Donoghue made his senior breakthrough at the then EFL League 2 side Carlisle United in 24-25 and is already preparing for life in the National League this coming campaign.
Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a footballer, so I was out there obviously trying to make something happen, and then a few clubs had a look at me, hadn't really worked out, and then I think it was actually a few games I'd played against Carlisle and they'd said that they'd like the look of me and obviously invited me on a trial, and it sort of just went from there really.
How important was Peel and the Ireland national setup for you in being able to get a move to somewhere like Carlisle?
Yeah, massively important. Like I always stress whenever I speak to anyone, the Isle of Man got such a good footballing community and it really helped me, especially as a young lad. You know, you've got the support around you from obviously my local club Peel and the Isle of Man setup as well. So yeah, they were instrumental in me being able to go across and do as well as I have done.
Who do you look up to in football? Is there anyone on the Isle of Man that kind of inspired you, and then, you know, wider as well?
Well, always as a kid I was sort of playing with my brother and his mate, so to be honest, all the older lads from a Peel point of view, I was watching the likes of, you know, Rhys Oates, Daniel Bell, Lee Gale as a young lad, and they always stuck out to me as like, this is something I want to be. And then obviously in recent times you start to learn off the senior pros, obviously in the professional game. There's loads of lads at Carlisle and in the wider football world that I look up to, and I think, you know, keeping them close and learning off them, it's perfect for me really. It's really helped me.
Are you back to full fitness now?
I'd like to think so, yeah. I've been doing a lot of training, trying to strengthen the shoulder back up, and football training, gym training, and it all feels good, but obviously getting into a real game, that's a test, but I'd like to think so, yeah.
What have you been up to, and when does pre-season start again for you?
I've just doing what most footballers would be doing. I've been on holiday, took some time to relax, and then after 2-3 weeks just back to fitness, running, playing football in the gym, just trying to give myself the best chance next year.
Well, we wish him all the best. That is Freddie O'Donoghue there. 5:21. There are now less than 2 weeks to go until the Isle of Man heads to the 2025 Island Games, and we at Manx Radio have been catching up with each of the sports ahead of their trip to Orkney. First up, gymnastics, a sport making a return to the Games after an 8-year absence, and Isle of Man team manager Helen Duggan says she and the squad are looking forward to next month's experience.
So we've got a team of 6 girls, 6 boys, some experienced gymnasts, probably 3 girls in each and 3 boys in each, which have been seniors previously, and now we've got some juniors coming up as well.
And one of those as well, a young girl called Phoebe as well, who's going to be, we believe, the youngest Isle of Man athlete in Orkney, and actually turns of age to be eligible on the day of the opening ceremony. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yes, we've looked at the bylaws, I don't know how many times, to make sure of our facts on this, but Phoebe's birthday is on the day of the opening ceremony, and that qualifies her to be in the team.
And when you look at the competitive side of things, there may be those out there who would dream of going on to big things in future, of course. At the last Commonwealth Games, we saw Tara Donnelly, for example, involved in the all-around. How big a platform can the Island Games be if there are athletes out there who may look to pursue it further?
Yes, we're looking at the Island Games as being one of the competitions our potential Commonwealth Games athletes use in their preparations. It's in their portfolio. If they get a good result at the Island Games, it can put them in the eyes of the selectors for Commonwealth Games. So yes, it really is a valuable stepping stone.
And when it comes to the more experienced athletes, how confident are you in some of their chances of maybe coming away with a medal or two in Orkney?
We can hope. We don't know what some countries are doing. We just hope to bring home some medals this time.
And for the newer faces as well, people talk about the really sort of personable experience that people have at the Island Games as well. How nice is it to know that they'll go into a positive environment where there's no pressure and they can just learn from the experience?
Yeah, this learning experience just can't be bettered really. They get this international flavour but without the pressure. We have a day off from competition, we go out with the other nations. They make friends for life at these events.
That is the Isle of Man team manager for gymnastics, Helen Duggan. Now, the chair of Andrews Commissioners believes people should not underestimate the power of their community after the opening of a new play area there. It was paid for by fundraising from local charities, and Jackie Farragut said they had a number of setbacks during the process, but they persevered until the end. That wasn't Jackie, was it? Never mind. Let's turn our attention to sport then, shall we, Rob? Because, there's a lot of sport going on.
Indeed, there is, Faster My. Well, we're going to start with tennis because former Ireland player Billy Harris is currently leading his first-round tie at Wimbledon by 2-0, facing Serbian Dusan Lajovic on court 15 at the All England Club. Harris took the first set 6-3 before charging through the second set, which he won 6-2. As it stands at the moment, Harris is currently leading by 4-1 in the third set. So if he were to win the next 2 games, he would advance advance to the second round of the gentlemen's singles draw at Wimbledon for the first time. However, all is not said and done. Still plenty of tennis to be played. Well, the winner of this evening's tie will face Portuguese competitor Nuno Borges, who overcame 16th seed Francisco Cerundolo earlier today, and Borges is currently ranked 37th in the world. Elsewhere, the Isle of Man women's national football side has continued its positive preparations for the 2025 Ireland Games with a 4-3 friendly victory over Inismont at the weekend. Inismont led inside just 26 seconds through Hannah Rowan, with the Isle of Man's Pippa Wallace equalising 3 minutes later with what was her first senior Isle of Man goal. Owen netted again for Inismont in the first period before Sarah O'Reilly equalised again for the Isle of Man from a free kick just before half-time. And with just over 60 minutes played, the Isle of Man led for the first time through Tia Lisi before Inismont's Cassie Evans made it 3-3 with just a few minutes of normal time left. However, Rebecca Cole converted from the penalty spot late on to hand the Isle of Man a last-gasp victory at Airbus Broughton, UK. This result makes it back-to-back friendly wins for the Isle of Man team after claiming a convincing 8-0 home win over Kendal Town Ladies on the 14th of June, and the squad is due to take part in this year's Ireland Games in Orkney from the 12th to the 18th of July. And finally, Isle of Man professional boxer Jay Burden will face a reigning Commonwealth champion for her next scheduled fight. The local fighters announced she's due to take on Commonwealth lightweight champion Kirsty Hill in a non-title bout on Saturday the 23rd of August at Grimsby Auditorium. We'll confirm in the showdown on social media. Burden's team is describing this test as a huge step up and that they're willing to travel anywhere for anyone. It's been more than 6 months since Burden was last in the ring when she defeated Kerry Orton on a points decision in Birmingham on the 15th of December last year. The Manx competitor had previously been due to fight again on the 27th of April this year. However, that contest was called off less than 2 weeks before it was scheduled to be held. And since making her debut in the pro ranks in 2024, Burden has won both of her professional fights so far.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. We know we're going to be talking a lot more about the Island Games as it approaches. I can't believe we're almost at that point. But you've been doing a lot of work with the teams, as we know, going away, and there's going to be some video content as well.
There is indeed, yes. We've been catching up in recent weeks and over time with the respective sports that are going to be taking part there. Thanks for the interlude there. Appreciate that.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Just let me, carry on.
Quite right. But you point out there's the video content. In fact, the first of those went live today on Manx Radio's YouTube channel and on the Manx Radio Sport Facebook page. We're also going to have in-depth interviews with all of the teams, including we heard from Helen Duggan before as well from the gymnastics side of things. They will be available on the Manx Radio Sportscast each day over the next 2 weeks leading up to the games as well, as long as with all the regular news content on the Manx Radio website.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. I don't know what's gone wrong here. It's just, one of those days, but never mind. Coming up next, we have got Agenda, and it's with Phil Gorn. It's a live programme tonight with Chris Thomas. So hopefully I'm having all the gremlins in the system so that Phil can just have a very, very easy ride here on Agenda. So that will be a very interesting listen. Remember, there's no keys this week. We've got the outdoor Tynwald sitting next Monday. So that will be the next political action that we see and hear about here on Manx Radio. After Agenda tonight, it will be time for Greatest Hits with Chris Kinley. From 9 then, it is time for Brass with Ian Cottier, and then Dave will be here with After Hours from 10 p.m. And as ever, for all the latest on all the other stories that are happening around the Isle of Man, if you just go to the Manx Radio website, you can find all the details there. I don't know what's going to happen when I hit this button now, but let's give it a go.